My head pounded from last night's whiskey, but the real pain came from watching my wife Erin pace around our kitchen like a caged tiger, her perfectly manicured nails clicking against her phone screen. "Frank, you absolutely humiliated me last night," she hissed, not even looking up from whatever social media disaster she was monitoring. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing it was when you called out my brother-in-law like that?" Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I took a long sip of black coffee and studied her. Even at 7 in the morning, Erin looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Blonde hair, perfectly styled, makeup flawless, wearing one of those expensive blouses that cost more than most people made in a week. She worked at First National Bank as a loan officer, and she never let anyone forget it. "Your brother-in-law is a piece of garbage, Erin. Someone needed to say it." She whirled around, her green eyes flashing. "Derek is family. He's married to my sister. You can't just accuse him of stealing from his construction clients without proof." "I've got proof. I've seen the invoices he's been padding. Mrs. Henderson showed me the bills for her kitchen renovation. He charged her for materials that never got delivered. That's fraud." Erin's face went red. "You're just jealous because Derek's successful. He drives a BMW, he's got that beautiful house in Millbrook Estates, and he doesn't spend his days covered in grease like some common mechanic." That stung, but I kept my voice level. I owned Doyle's auto repair, and I was damn good at what I did. I'd built the business from nothing after my dad died, and it kept us comfortable. But to Erin, I'd always be just a grease monkey who wasn't good enough for her precious social circle. Success built on ripping off elderly widows isn't success, Erin. It's theft. She slammed her phone down on the granite countertop. "You're going to apologize to Derek today. I mean it, Frank. You're going to drive over to his house and tell him you were drunk and stupid and that you're sorry for making a scene at dinner." I laughed, which made her even angrier. "You want me to apologize to a con man?" "I want you to apologize to my family. Derek called my sister crying last night. Crying, Frank. He's devastated that you think so little of him. Sarah's beside herself." The way she said it made something click in my brain. Derek crying. The same Derek who'd bragged about cheating on his taxes and laughed about overcharging customers. The same Derek who'd tried to grab our waitress's ass at dinner while his pregnant wife was in the bathroom. "Fine," I said, setting down my coffee mug. "I'll apologize to Derek today." Erin's expression shifted from anger to surprise. She'd expected more of a fight. "Really? Really? I'll drive over there this afternoon and give him the apology he deserves." She smiled for the first time all morning, and for a second I remembered why I'd fallen for her 8 years ago. Then she opened her mouth again. "Good. And Frank, try to dress nicely. Derek and Sarah live in a respectable neighborhood. I don't want you showing up looking like you just crawled out from under a car." I nodded and headed upstairs to shower. As the hot water beat down on my shoulders, I thought about Derek Morrison and his perfect life in Millbrook Estates. His construction company, Morrison Quality Homes, had been booming for the past 3 years. He drove that shiny BMW, lived in a house that looked like it belonged in a magazine, and had somehow convinced my sister-in-law Sarah that he was Prince Charming. But I knew better. I'd done work on some of Derek's job sites when clients needed electrical or plumbing repairs that his crews had botched. I'd seen the shortcuts, the cheap materials passed off as premium, the shoddy workmanship hidden behind fresh paint and fancy fixtures. Derek Morrison was a fraud, and everyone was too dazzled by his success to see it. Well, almost everyone. I'd been collecting evidence for months, not really sure what I planned to do with it. Photos of substandard work, copies of inflated invoices, testimonials from clients who'd been overcharged. I kept it all in a folder in my workshop, telling myself I was just being thorough. Now I knew exactly what I was going to do with it. I got dressed in my best jeans and a clean button-down shirt, respectable enough for Millbrook Estates, and drove to work. My shop was only 10 minutes from our house, a squat brick building with 2 service bays and a small office. My assistant Tommy was already there, working on a transmission rebuild. "Morning, boss. You look like hell." "Thanks, Tommy. You're a real confidence booster." He grinned and went back to his work. Tommy was 23, fresh out of trade school, and one of the best mechanics I'd ever worked with. He reminded me of myself at that age, hungry, dedicated, and willing to work twice as hard as anyone else to prove himself. I spent the morning catching up on paperwork and returning phone calls, but my mind kept drifting to Derek and the conversation I was going to have with him. By lunchtime, I'd made my decision. I drove home and went straight to my workshop in the basement. The folder was exactly where I'd left it, thick with evidence of Derek's crimes. But I didn't take all of it, just enough to make my point. A few photos, some invoices, and a recorded conversation I'd had with Mrs. Henderson where she detailed how Derek had cheated her. I also grabbed something else, a small digital recorder I used for taking notes on complex repair jobs. I slipped it into my shirt pocket and headed for Millbrook Estates. Millbrook Estates was one of those cookie-cutter developments where every house looked like it had been designed by the same architect having a bad day. Derek and Sarah's place was a sprawling colonial with a 3-car garage and a lawn that looked like it belonged on a golf course. I parked in the circular driveway behind Derek's BMW and Sarah's Honda Pilot. Before I got out, I turned on the digital recorder in my pocket. Whatever was about to happen, I wanted a record of it. Sarah answered the door, and I was shocked by how she looked. My sister-in-law had always been the prettier of the 2 sisters, darker hair, warmer smile, more down-to-earth. But now she looked exhausted. Her face was puffy, her eyes were red, and she was wearing a bathrobe at 2 in the afternoon. "Frank, what are you doing here?" "Erin sent me to apologize to Derek for last night." Sarah's expression hardened. "He's in his office. But Frank, he's really hurt by what you said. I hope you're here to make things right." She led me through the house, past furniture that probably cost more than most people's cars. Everything was pristine, perfectly arranged, like a showroom. We stopped at a heavy wooden door, and Sarah knocked. "Derek, Frank's here to see you." The door opened, and Derek Morrison appeared. He was about my age, but where I was built like a linebacker from years of physical work, Derek was soft around the middle. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his clothes expensive and casual. He looked like what he was, a successful businessman who'd never done a day of real work in his life. "Frank." His voice was cold. "I wasn't expecting you." "I came to apologize," I said. "Can we talk?" Derek glanced at his wife, then stepped aside to let me into his office. It was impressive. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, walls covered with awards, and photos of Derek with local politicians and business leaders. The success was real, even if it was built on lies. "Sarah, could you give us some privacy?" Derek asked. She nodded and closed the door behind her. Derek gestured to a chair across from his desk, but I remained standing. "So," he said, settling into his executive chair, "you're here to apologize." "That's right." He leaned back, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I have to admit I'm surprised. Last night, you seemed pretty convinced that I was some kind of criminal." "I was drunk. I said things I shouldn't have said." "Yes, you did. In front of my wife, my in-laws, and half the restaurant. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was for me? For Sarah?" I nodded. "I'm sorry about that." "Are you?" "Because it felt personal, Frank, like you've been carrying around some kind of grudge against me for a while." Derek was enjoying this. He thought he'd won, that he'd forced me to come crawling back with my tail between my legs. He had no idea what was coming. "You're right," I said. "It was personal. I've never liked you, Derek. I think you're a fake and a fraud." His smile disappeared. "Excuse me?" "I said you're a fraud. You've been stealing from your clients for years, and I can prove it. I pulled out the folder and dropped it on his desk. Photos scattered across the mahogany surface, pictures of shoddy electrical work, water damage from improper plumbing, foundation cracks that had been painted over instead of repaired. Derek's face went white. What is this? Evidence. Mrs. Henderson's kitchen renovation. You charged her for premium cabinets and gave her particle board. The Johnsons' bathroom. You used the cheapest tile you could find and billed them for Italian marble. Should I go on? You're insane. These photos don't prove anything. I pulled out my phone and played the recording of Mrs. Henderson describing how Derek had cheated her. Her elderly voice filled the room, detailing every lie, every shortcut, every dollar she'd been overcharged. She's 92 years old, Derek. Her husband died last year, and she trusted you to renovate the kitchen he'd promised to update for 40 years. You stole from a grieving widow. Derek stood up, his hands shaking. You can't prove any of this. It's all circumstantial. Maybe, but I bet the state licensing board would be interested in taking a look, and the IRS might want to know how you're affording this lifestyle on your reported income. Funny how your business expenses always seem to match your gross receipts, isn't it? The color drained from Derek's face completely. What do you want? I want you to confess. I want you to call every client you've cheated and make it right. I want you to turn yourself in to the authorities and face the consequences of what you've done. Derek laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're out of your mind if you think I'm going to destroy my life based on the accusations of some jealous mechanic. Jealous? Of what? Your stolen money? Your fake success? Jealous of everything I have that you don't. The house, the cars, the respect. Jealous that Sarah married up while Erin settled for a grease monkey who'll never be anything more than what he is right now. That hit home, and Derek saw it in my face. He smiled again, sensing weakness. You know what I think, Frank? I think you're here because Erin made you come. I think she's embarrassed by you and what you said last night, and she sent you here to grovel so she can save face with her family. He was right, and we both knew it. But that didn't change what he was. Maybe so, but I'm still right about you being a thief. Prove it in court. Until then, stay away from me and my family. And Frank, if you ever try to spread these lies about me, I'll sue you for everything you've got. I'll take your little garage, your house, everything. You'll be living in a trailer park by the time my lawyers are done with you. I gathered up the photos and put them back in the folder. We'll see about that. As I headed for the door, Derek called after me. Tell Erin I appreciate the apology. It shows she's got more class than her husband. I paused with my hand on the doorknob. You know what, Derek? You're right about one thing. Erin did send me here to apologize, but I never said I was sorry for what I said about you. I said I was sorry for saying it in public. I opened the door and found Sarah waiting in the hallway, her face anxious. Is everything okay? I heard raised voices. Everything's fine, I said. Derek and I just had a good talk. We understand each other now. Sarah looked relieved. I'm so glad. Family is important, Frank. We need to stick together. I nodded and headed for the front door. As I walked to my truck, I could hear Derek and Sarah talking in urgent whispers behind me. The conversation was about to get very interesting. I sat in my truck for a moment before starting the engine, thinking about what had just happened. Derek thought he'd won, thought his threats had scared me off. He had no idea that I'd recorded our entire conversation or that I had copies of all the evidence safely stored in multiple locations. More importantly, he had no idea that this was just the beginning. I didn't go straight home after leaving Derek's house. Instead, I drove to Murphy's Tavern, a dive bar on the outskirts of town where I used to spend a lot of time before I got married. The owner, Pat Murphy, had been a friend of my father's, and the place felt more like home than my actual house most days. It was early afternoon, so the bar was mostly empty, except for a few regulars nursing beers and watching a baseball game on the ancient TV above the bar. I ordered a whiskey and found a quiet booth in the back. I was halfway through my drink when I heard familiar laughter from the bar. I looked up and saw two guys I'd grown up with, Mike Brennan and Tom Walsh. We'd been inseparable in high school, played football together, double-dated, got into the kind of trouble that seemed hilarious when you were 18. But things had changed after I married Erin. She'd made it clear that she didn't approve of my old friends, said they were beneath us now that she was climbing the social ladder at the bank. Gradually, I'd stopped hanging out with them, stopped returning their calls, stopped being the person I used to be. Mike spotted me first. He was a big guy, worked construction, and had the kind of easy smile that made everyone like him instantly. "Holy shit, Frank Doyle, look what the cat dragged in." Tom turned around, grinning. He was shorter than Mike and me, but he made up for it with attitude. He owned a small landscaping business and was always getting into arguments with city officials about regulations and permits. "Frankie boy, where the hell have you been hiding?" They came over to my booth, and for a moment, it felt like old times. We talked about work, about the Red Sox's chances this season, about mutual friends and their various disasters and successes. But there was an undercurrent of tension that hadn't been there before. "So, how's married life treating you?" Mike asked, and there was something in his tone that put me on edge. "It's fine, good. Erin's doing well at the bank." Tom snorted. "Yeah, we heard. She's quite the social climber these days." "What's that supposed to mean?" Mike and Tom exchanged glances. "Nothing, man. Just that she's different from the girls we used to date. She's successful, ambitious. Nothing wrong with that." "Course not," Tom said, but his voice was flat. "Must be nice having someone who can afford all the finer things in life." I was starting to get angry. "What's your problem, Tom?" "My problem? I don't have a problem, Frank, but you might want to ask your wife about her lunch meetings with Derek Morrison." The whiskey turned to acid in my stomach. "What are you talking about?" Mike looked uncomfortable. "Tom, maybe we shouldn't what? Shouldn't tell our old friend that his wife's been seen around town with her brother-in-law, having cozy little lunches at expensive restaurants while Frank's at work?" I stood up, my hands clenched into fists. "You better watch your mouth, Tom. Or what? You'll hit me? When's the last time you threw a punch, Frank? When's the last time you did anything that your wife didn't approve of first?" "That's enough." My voice was low and dangerous. Tom stood up too, and I could see years of resentment boiling over. "You know what your problem is, Frank. You used to be somebody. You used to be our friend. Now you're just Erin's pet husband, and she's got you so whipped you can't even see what's happening right in front of your face." "What's happening? What are you trying to say?" "I'm saying your wife and Derek Morrison have been seen together a lot lately, and not at family dinners." The bar had gone quiet. Even the regulars at the counter were listening now. I felt like everyone was staring at me, judging me, pitying me. "You're lying." Mike put a hand on my shoulder. "Frank, sit down. Let's talk about this like adults." I shrugged off his hand. "Don't touch me, and don't pretend you're looking out for me. If you had something to say, you should have said it months ago." "We tried," Tom said. "We called. We stopped by your shop. But you were always too busy, always had somewhere else to be, somewhere Erin wanted you to be." "That's not true." "Isn't it? When's the last time you came out for a beer with us? When's the last time you did anything without asking permission first?" I wanted to argue, but the words stuck in my throat. Because Tom was right, and we all knew it. "She's changed you, Frank. You used to be fun. You used to be loyal. Now you're just another suburban husband who's forgotten where he came from." "I haven't forgotten anything." "No? Then prove it. Come have a drink with us, like old times." I looked at both of them, these guys who'd been my best friends for most of my life. Part of me wanted to sit back down, to pretend things could go back to the way they used to be. But too much had changed. Too much had been said. "I can't. I've got to get home." Tom shook his head in disgust. "Of course you do. Wouldn't want to keep the missus waiting. I threw a 20 on the table and headed for the door. Behind me, I could hear Tom talking to Mike in a voice loud enough for me to hear. Remember when Frank Doyle had a backbone? Remember when he gave a shit about his friends? I paused at the door, my hand on the handle. For a second, I considered turning around, considered telling them about Derek and what I'd discovered, considered asking for their help. But the moment passed, and I walked out into the parking lot. As I drove home, Tom's words echoed in my head. Lunch meetings with Derek, cozy restaurants. Had I been blind to what was happening in my own marriage? I thought about Erin's behavior lately. The way she'd been dressing nicer, staying late at work, being secretive about her phone calls. The way she'd been so insistent that I apologized to Derek, so concerned about his feelings. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I'd made a decision. It was time to find out exactly what my wife had been doing with her brother-in-law. I found Erin in our bedroom, getting ready for what she called a girls' night out with her sister Sarah. She was wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, something expensive and sophisticated that showed off her figure. "How did it go with Derek?" she asked, applying lipstick in the mirror. "Fine, we talked, I apologized." She smiled at my reflection. "Good. I knew you'd do the right thing. Derek's family, Frank. We need to support each other." "Where are you and Sarah going tonight?" "Just dinner and drinks. She needs to get out of the house. Being pregnant is making her stir-crazy." I nodded, but something felt off. Sarah was 7 months pregnant. Would she really be going out for drinks? What restaurant? Erin's hand paused for just a moment as she applied her lipstick. "We haven't decided yet. Probably that new Italian place downtown." Another lie. The new Italian place had closed 2 months ago. "What time will you be home?" "Late. Don't wait up." She kissed me on the cheek, leaving a red mark. "Thanks for apologizing to Derek today. I know it wasn't easy for you." After she left, I sat in my living room and thought about what Tom had said. Lunch meetings with Derek, cozy restaurants, my wife lying about where she was going tonight. I'd never been the jealous type, had never felt the need to check up on Erin or question her activities. But now, doubt was eating at me like acid. I went to my computer and logged into our cell phone account. Erin and I shared a family plan, which meant I could see her call and text logs. What I found made my blood run cold. Dozens of calls to Derek's number over the past 3 months. Text messages sent at all hours of the day and night. The frequency had increased dramatically in recent weeks. I couldn't see the content of the messages, but the pattern was clear. My wife had been in constant contact with her brother-in-law, far more than would be normal for family members. I checked our credit card statements next. Charges at expensive restaurants I'd never been to, always for 2 people, always during lunch hours when I was at work. Hotel charges that made no sense. Why would Erin need a hotel room in our own town? The evidence was circumstantial, but it painted a clear picture. My wife was having an affair with Derek Morrison. I poured myself a large whiskey and tried to process what I'd discovered. The man I'd confronted this afternoon, the man I'd accused of being a fraud and a thief, was sleeping with my wife, and she'd sent me to apologize to him. The humiliation was overwhelming. Derek's smug smile, his comments about Erin having more class than me, his threats about taking everything I owned, it all made sense now. He knew I suspected him of cheating his clients, but he also knew he had the ultimate leverage over me. My phone buzzed with a text message from Erin. "Having a great time with Sarah. Don't wait up. Love you." I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. I spent the next hour going through more financial records, phone logs, and credit card statements. The affair had been going on for at least 3 months, maybe longer. They'd been careful, but not careful enough. There were hotel receipts, restaurant charges, even what looked like jewelry purchases that I'd never seen Erin wear. Around midnight, I heard Erin's car in the driveway. I quickly closed the laptop and pretended to be watching TV. She came in looking slightly disheveled, her lipstick gone, her hair not quite as perfect as when she'd left. "How was dinner?" I asked. "Great. Sarah's doing well considering. We had a nice time catching up." "What did you eat?" She paused, and I could see her mind working. "Italian. Pasta. You know how Sarah loves carbs when she's pregnant." Another lie. I could smell Derek's cologne on her clothes. "I'm exhausted," she said. "I'm going to shower and go to bed." I listened to the water running upstairs and made my decision. Tomorrow, I was going to get proof of what my wife and Derek Morrison were doing. And then, I was going to destroy both of them. But first, I had a phone call to make. I dialed Tom Walsh's number. He answered on the third ring, his voice thick with sleep. "Frank? What time is it?" "Tom, I need to ask you something. Those lunch meetings you mentioned, Derek and Erin, how long has that been going on?" There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, "Jesus, Frank. I was drunk. I shouldn't have said anything." "How long, Tom?" He sighed. "A few months. Mike and I have seen them together maybe 6 or 7 times, always at nice places, always looking close." "Close how?" "Holding hands. Sitting on the same side of the booth. Once Mike saw them going into the Marriott together." The Marriott. I'd seen charges for the Marriott on our credit card statement. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "We tried, Frank. But you made it clear you didn't want to hear from us anymore. And honestly, we weren't sure you'd believe us. You've been so defensive about Erin, so protective of your perfect little life." He was right. I'd chosen Erin over my friends, and now I was paying the price. "Tom, I need your help." "With what?" "I need proof. Real proof. Photos, recordings, something that will hold up if this goes to court." "Frank, are you sure you want to go down this road? Sometimes it's better not to know." "I already know. I just need to prove it." There was another long pause. Then, "Okay, Mike's got a friend who does private investigation work, divorce cases mostly. I can give you his number." "Thanks." "Frank, I'm sorry. About today, about everything. We should have handled this better." "No, you were right. About all of it. I did forget where I came from. I did choose her over my friends, and now I'm paying for it." "What are you going to do?" I looked up at the ceiling, where I could hear Erin moving around in our bedroom, probably getting ready to lie next to me and pretend everything was normal. "I'm going to make them both pay for what they've done, starting with Derek. Be careful, Frank. Derek Morrison has money and connections. He could make things difficult for you." "Let him try. I've got nothing left to lose." After I hung up, I sat in the dark living room and planned my next move. Derek thought he'd won today, thought his threats had scared me off. Erin thought she was clever, thought I was too stupid to figure out what was happening. They were both about to learn how wrong they were. The next morning, Erin left for work early, claiming she had a breakfast meeting with potential clients. I called in sick to the shop and told Tommy he was in charge for the day. Then I drove to a coffee shop across the street from First National Bank and waited. At 9:15, Derek Morrison's BMW pulled up to the bank. Erin came out a few minutes later and got into his car. They drove off together, and I followed at a distance. They went to the Marriott, just like Tom had said. I watched them walk into the hotel together, Derek's hand on the small of Erin's back, both of them laughing about something. They looked comfortable, familiar, like they'd done this many times before. I sat in the parking lot for 2 hours, taking photos with my phone, documenting the time and date. When they finally came out, Erin's hair was mussed and Derek was straightening his tie. They kissed goodbye before getting into their separate cars. Not a family peck on the cheek, but a long, passionate kiss that left no doubt about what they'd been doing. I followed Erin back to the bank, then drove home to process what I'd seen. The photos were clear, damning evidence of my wife's infidelity. But I wanted more. I wanted to destroy Derek Morrison completely, and that meant exposing both his business fraud and his affair with my wife. I called the private investigator Tom had recommended, a guy named Ray Kowalski, who specialized in divorce cases and corporate fraud. We met that afternoon at a diner outside of town. Ray was exactly what you'd expect from a private investigator, middle-aged, rumpled, cynical. He listened to my story without comment, occasionally taking notes in a small notebook. "So you want proof of the affair and evidence of business fraud," he said when I finished. "That's a lot of work. It's going to be expensive." "How expensive?" $5,000 for a complete investigation. Photos, videos, financial records, witness statements, the whole package. I thought about our savings account, about the money Erin and I had been putting aside for a down payment on a bigger house. "Do it." Ray nodded. "I'll need a retainer. Half up front, half when I deliver the goods." I wrote him a check for $2,500. "How long will this take?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. Depends on how careful they're being." "They're not being careful at all." Ray smiled grimly. "Those are my favorite cases." Over the next 2 weeks, Ray worked his magic. He followed Erin and Derek, documented their meetings, recorded their phone conversations. He also investigated Derek's business practices, interviewing former employees and disgruntled clients. Meanwhile, I played the role of the oblivious husband. I went to work, came home, had dinner with Erin, watched TV, went to bed. She continued her girls' nights out with Sarah, her breakfast meetings with clients, her late nights at the office. Each lie felt like a knife in my chest, but I endured it because I knew it was temporary. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. Erin claimed she had to work late on a big loan application, but I knew she was with Derek. I'd seen his BMW parked behind the bank when I drove by earlier. I was sitting in my living room, drinking whiskey and watching a baseball game, when my phone rang. It was Sarah, my sister-in-law. "Frank? Is Erin there?" "No, she's working late tonight." "Why?" "Working late?" But Derek said he was working late too. "I was hoping Erin could come over and keep me company. This pregnancy is making me so tired, but I can't sleep." My heart pounded. "I'm sure she'll be home soon. I can have her call you." "That's okay. I'll just try to get some rest." After she hung up, I sat there shaking with rage. Not only were Derek and Erin having an affair, but they were using Sarah's pregnancy as cover for their meetings. Derek was cheating on his pregnant wife with her own sister, and Erin was helping him lie about it. That night, when Erin came home smelling like Derek's cologne, I almost confronted her, but I held back. Ray wasn't finished with his investigation yet, and I wanted to have all the evidence before I made my move. 3 days later, Ray called. "I've got everything you need. Can you meet me tomorrow?" We met at the same diner, and Ray handed me a thick manila envelope. Inside were photos, audio recordings, financial documents, and witness statements that painted a complete picture of Derek Morrison's crimes and his affair with my wife. The photos were devastating. Derek and Erin in hotel rooms, in restaurants, in Derek's BMW parked in secluded locations. The audio recordings were even worse, capturing their intimate conversations, their plans to meet, their discussions about how to hide their affair from their spouses. But the business fraud evidence was what really excited me. Ray had uncovered a pattern of theft that went back years: inflated invoices, substandard materials, bribed inspectors, tax evasion. Derek Morrison was a criminal on multiple levels. "This is enough to put him away for years," Ray said. "The state attorney general would love to get their hands on this." "What about Erin? She's not involved in the business fraud, but the affair is well documented. If you're planning to divorce her, this will ensure you get everything." I studied the photos of my wife with her lover, feeling a mixture of rage and satisfaction. "I'm not just planning to divorce her, Ray. I'm planning to destroy both of them." Ray looked concerned. "Frank, be careful. Revenge is a dangerous game. Sometimes it's better to just walk away." "I can't walk away, not after what they've done." I paid Ray the rest of his fee and drove home with the evidence. That night, while Erin slept beside me, I made copies of everything and stored them in multiple locations: my safety deposit box, my lawyer's office, my shop, and with Tom and Mike. Tomorrow, I was going to start my war against Derek Morrison and my cheating wife, and I was going to win. I spent the weekend planning my attack. Derek and Erin thought they were untouchable, thought they were smarter than everyone around them. They were about to learn how wrong they were. On Monday morning, I called in sick again and drove to Derek's construction site on the other side of town. He was supervising the framing of a new house, barking orders at his crew like he was some kind of general. I parked across the street and watched him work. He looked confident, successful, completely unaware that his world was about to collapse around him. At lunchtime, Derek got in his BMW and drove to a sandwich shop downtown. I followed him inside and got in line behind him. When he turned around and saw me, his face went pale. "Frank, what are you doing here?" "Having lunch. Same as you." He ordered his sandwich and moved to a table in the corner. I ordered mine and sat down across from him without being invited. "We need to talk," I said. "I thought we already talked. I thought you apologized." "I did, but that was before I found out about you and my wife." Derek's sandwich stopped halfway to his mouth. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out one of the photos Ray had taken, Derek and Erin kissing in the Marriott parking lot. "I'm talking about this." Derek stared at the photo for a long moment, then set down his sandwich. "Where did you get this?" "Does it matter? The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "Frank, I can explain." "Explain what? Explain how you've been screwing my wife for the past 3 months? Explain how you've been using your pregnant wife as an alibi? Explain how you threatened to sue me while you were sleeping with my wife?" People at nearby tables were starting to stare. Derek looked around nervously, then leaned forward and lowered his voice. "Keep your voice down. This isn't the place for this conversation." "No. Then where is the place? Your office? Your house? The Marriott?" Derek's face was red now, whether from embarrassment or anger, I couldn't tell. "What do you want, Frank?" "I want you to confess. To everything. The affair, the business fraud, all of it." "Business fraud? You're still on about that?" I pulled out another envelope and spread its contents across the table. Photos of substandard work, copies of inflated invoices, witness statements from cheated clients. "Mrs. Henderson wasn't the only one, Derek. You've been stealing from people for years. Ray Kowalski is very thorough." Derek's face went white. "You hired a private investigator?" "I hired the best, and he found everything. Your affair with Erin, your business crimes, your tax evasion, everything." Derek stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. "You have no idea what you're messing with." "Sit down, Derek. We're not finished." "Yes, we are." He started to walk away, but I grabbed his arm. "If you walk away from me now, I'm going straight to the State Attorney General's office. And the IRS. And your wife." Derek jerked his arm free, but sat back down. "What do you want?" "I want you to confess to Sarah. I want you to tell her about the affair, about the lies, about everything you've put her through." "I can't do that. She's pregnant. The stress could harm the baby." "You should have thought about that before you started screwing her sister." Derek buried his face in his hands. "Frank, please. I know you're angry, but think about what this will do to the family, to Sarah, to the baby, to Erin." "I don't give a damn about Erin anymore, and you lost the right to worry about Sarah when you decided to cheat on her." "What about your marriage? Are you really willing to throw away 8 years over this?" I laughed bitterly. "My marriage is already over, Derek. Erin threw it away when she decided to sleep with you." Derek looked up at me, and I could see desperation in his eyes. "What if I ended it? What if I stopped seeing Erin and focused on my marriage?" "Too late for that." "It's not too late. We could all move past this, start fresh. I could make things right with my clients, Pay back anyone I might have overcharged. Might have overcharged? You stole from a 92-year-old widow, Derek. You're a thief and a fraud, and you're going to pay for what you've done. Derek's desperation turned to anger. You think you're so righteous, don't you? You think you're better than me because you work with your hands and drive an old truck? Well, let me tell you something, Frank. Erin came to me. She was the one who made the first move. She was tired of being married to a nobody who smells like motor oil and has grease under his fingernails. The words hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral. Is that what she told you? She told me she married you because she thought you had potential, but you never lived up to it. She said you were content to be a small-town mechanic for the rest of your life while she wanted more. Each word was designed to hurt, and they did. But they also made me angrier, more determined to see this through. Well, Derek, she's about to get exactly what she deserves. I gathered up the photos and documents and stood to leave. Derek grabbed my wrist. Frank, wait. Let's make a deal. I'll pay you. Whatever you want. $100,000 to make this go away. I looked down at his hand on my wrist, then back at his face. Take your hand off me, Derek. He let go, but kept talking. 200,000. Cash. You could start over somewhere else, open a new shop, forget any of this ever happened. You don't have $200,000 in cash. I can get it. Give me a week. I shook my head. There's not enough money in the world to make me forget what you've done to me, Derek. You're going down and you're taking Erin with you. I walked out of the restaurant, leaving Derek sitting alone with his untouched sandwich. Phase 1 of my plan was complete. Now it was time for Phase 2. That evening, I waited for Erin to come home from work. She walked in at her usual time, looking beautiful and composed, completely unaware that her world was about to explode. How was your day? She asked, kissing me on the cheek like she had 1,000 times before. Interesting. I had lunch with Derek today. She froze. You did? Why? We had some things to discuss. About you, actually. I could see the fear creeping into her eyes. What about me? I pulled out the manila envelope and set it on the kitchen counter. About your affair, Erin. About the lies, the hotel rooms, the secret phone calls, about everything. She stared at the envelope like it was a snake. Frank, I don't know what you think you know, but I know everything. I opened the envelope and spread the photos across the counter. Ray Kowalski is very thorough. Erin's face crumpled as she saw the images of herself with Derek. Frank, please let me explain. Explain what? Explain how you've been cheating on me for months? Explain how you sent me to apologize to the man you're sleeping with? Explain how you've been lying to Sarah, letting her think you're her friend while you screw her husband? Tears were streaming down Erin's face now. It wasn't supposed to happen. It just did. Nothing just happens, Erin. You made a choice. You chose to betray me, to betray Sarah, to betray your marriage vows. I know. I know I made a mistake. But Frank, I love you. I want to make this work. I laughed, and the sound was harsh and bitter. You love me? You have a funny way of showing it. I do love you. Derek means nothing to me. He was just a distraction, a mistake. A mistake that lasted 3 months? A mistake that involved hotel rooms and secret phone calls and lies to everyone we know. Erin wiped her eyes and tried to compose herself. What do you want me to say, Frank? That I'm sorry? I am. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything to make this right. It's too late for that. It's not too late. We can go to counseling. We can work through this. I shook my head. I'm filing for divorce, Erin. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly why. Her tears stopped, and I could see anger replacing the fear in her eyes. You can't do that. You'll destroy my career, my reputation. You should have thought about that before you decided to cheat. Frank, be reasonable. If you divorce me and make this public, it'll hurt everyone. Sarah, the baby, your business reputation. People will talk. Let them talk. I'm done protecting you. Erin's mask finally slipped completely. Fine. You want to play hardball? Let's play hardball. I'll take half of everything you own. The house, the business, the savings. I'll make sure you regret this. Actually, you won't. The prenup you signed protects me in case of adultery. You get nothing, Erin. Nothing except the shame of everyone knowing what you really are. The color drained from her face. She'd forgotten about the prenup, the document she'd signed without reading because she was so eager to get married. You bastard! You planned this. I didn't plan anything. I just prepared for it. Unlike you, I actually read the papers I signed. Erin grabbed her purse and headed for the door. I'm going to stay at my sister's tonight. No, you're not. Sarah doesn't know about the affair yet, but she will soon. Derek's going to tell her everything. Erin stopped with her hand on the doorknob. What did you do? I gave Derek a choice. Confess to Sarah or I'll do it for him. Either way, she's going to know the truth. You can't do this to her. She's pregnant. The stress could hurt the baby. You and Derek should have thought about that before you started your affair. Erin turned around, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked defeated. Frank, please. I'm begging you. Don't do this. It's already done, Erin. The only question now is whether you want to face this with some dignity or make it even worse for yourself. She stared at me for a long moment, then opened the door and walked out. I heard her car start and drive away, and then the house was quiet. I poured myself a large whiskey and sat down in my living room. Tomorrow, Sarah would know the truth about her husband and her sister. Derek's business would be exposed as a fraud. Erin's career and reputation would be destroyed. It was going to be a very interesting day. The call came at 6 a.m. Sarah was crying so hard I could barely understand her. Frank? Is it true? Is Derek really having an affair with Erin? Derek had chosen to confess rather than let me do it for him. Smart move, but it wouldn't save him. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. How long have you known? I found out last week. I hired a private investigator to get proof. A week? You've known for a week, and you didn't tell me? I could hear the anger building in her voice, and I didn't blame her. I wanted to be sure. I wanted to have evidence before I said anything. Evidence? What kind of evidence? Photos, audio recordings, financial records showing hotel charges and restaurant bills. Sarah was quiet for a moment, processing what I'd told her. Can I see them? Sarah, I don't think that's a good idea. You're pregnant and don't you dare treat me like I'm fragile, Frank. My husband has been cheating on me with my own sister. I have a right to know everything. She was right. Okay, I'll bring them over. I drove to Derek and Sarah's house in Millbrook Estates. Derek's BMW was gone, probably at a hotel somewhere. Sarah answered the door in her bathrobe, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Where's Derek? I threw him out, told him not to come back until I decided what I wanted to do. I followed her into the kitchen and spread the photos and documents across the granite countertop. Sarah studied them with the intensity of a prosecutor reviewing evidence. 3 months, she said quietly. They've been doing this for 3 months. At least, maybe longer. She picked up one of the photos, Derek and Erin kissing in his car. Look how happy they look, like they're in love. Sarah, no, it's okay. I need to see this. I need to understand what I'm dealing with. She went through every photo, every document, every piece of evidence. When she finished, she sat down heavily in one of the kitchen chairs. I'm 7 months pregnant with his child, and he's been screwing my sister. How is that even possible? I don't know. And Erin, God, Erin, she's been coming over here, helping me with baby preparations, listening to me talk about how excited I am to be a mother, all while she's been sleeping with my husband. Sarah started crying again, and I didn't know what to say. Nothing I could offer would make this better. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "I don't know. Divorce him, I guess. But Frank, I don't have any money of my own. I quit my job when I got pregnant. Everything we have is in Derek's name." I thought about Derek's business fraud, about the evidence Ray had uncovered. "You might have more options than you think." "What do you mean?" I showed her the financial documents, the evidence of Derek's business crimes. "Your husband isn't just a cheater, Sarah. He's also a thief. He's been defrauding his clients for years." Sarah studied the documents with growing amazement. This is millions of dollars. At least, and it's all going to come out. The state attorney general is going to be very interested in this." "Will I get in trouble for not knowing?" "No. You're a victim here, Sarah, in more ways than one." She was quiet for a long time, thinking through the implications. If Derek goes to prison, he'll go to prison. There's too much evidence to ignore. And the business? Will probably be seized by the state. But Sarah, you might be able to recover some of the money through civil suits, especially if you cooperate with the investigation. For the first time since I'd arrived, Sarah smiled. "So Derek loses everything." "Everything. Good. That bastard deserves it." We spent the next hour going through the evidence in detail. Sarah was smarter than I'd given her credit for. She understood the financial implications immediately and started making plans for her future as a single mother. "What about Erin?" she asked. "What about her? Are you going to divorce her?" "Already filed the papers. She'll be served today." "And her job at the bank?" I smiled grimly. Banks don't like employees who get involved in scandals, especially scandals involving fraud and adultery. Sarah nodded approvingly. "She's going to lose everything too." "That's the plan." "Frank, can I ask you something? Why are you helping me? You could have just divorced Erin and walked away from all this." I thought about that for a moment. "Because Derek and Erin didn't just betray us, Sarah. They betrayed everyone who trusted them. Derek's clients, his employees, his business partners, Erin's colleagues and friends. They deserve to face the consequences of their actions. And because you're angry. Yes, I'm angry. They humiliated me, lied to me, treated me like I was too stupid to figure out what was happening. They're going to pay for that." Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Thank you for finding out the truth, for telling me, for helping me understand what my options are." "Your family, Sarah, even if Erin isn't acting like it." After I left Sarah's house, I drove to the state attorney general's office and turned over all the evidence of Derek's business fraud. The prosecutor I spoke with was very interested, especially in the tax evasion charges. "This is a substantial case, Mr. Doyle. We'll definitely be pursuing charges." "How long before you arrest him?" "Soon. We'll need to verify some of the evidence, interview witnesses, but I'd say within the week." "Perfect." Derek would be arrested just as the divorce papers were being served and the scandal was becoming public knowledge. My next stop was First National Bank. I asked to speak with the branch manager, a woman named Patricia Wells, who'd always been friendly to me at social events. "Frank, what can I do for you?" I handed her copies of the photos showing Erin with Derek. "I thought you should know that one of your employees is having an affair with a man who's about to be arrested for business fraud." Patricia studied the photos with a professional poker face, but I could see the concern in her eyes. "These are very serious allegations, Frank." "They're not allegations. They're facts. Erin has been having an affair with Derek Morrison for months, and Derek is going to be arrested for defrauding his construction clients." "I see. And you're bringing this to me because banks have reputation standards for their employees, and because Erin used company time and resources to conduct her affair. She's been leaving work early, taking long lunches, using the bank's phone system to coordinate meetings with her lover." Patricia nodded slowly. I'll need to investigate these claims. Of course, but I thought you should have a heads up before this becomes public knowledge. I left the bank feeling satisfied. Erin's career was effectively over. No bank would keep an employee involved in a scandal like this, especially one who'd been using company resources to conduct an affair. That evening, I went to Murphy's Tavern to meet Tom and Mike. They were waiting for me in our old booth, beers already ordered. "So how did it go?" Tom asked. I told them everything: the confrontation with Derek, the conversation with Sarah, my visits to the Attorney General's office and the bank. They listened with growing amazement. "Jesus, Frank," Mike said, "you really went nuclear on them." They had it coming. Derek's really going to prison? Unless he can explain away millions of dollars in fraudulent charges, which he can't. Tom raised his beer. To Frank Doyle, who remembered how to fight back. We clinked glasses, and for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. "So, what's next?" Mike asked. "Next, I watch their world burn. Derek gets arrested, Erin gets fired, Sarah divorces Derek and takes whatever's left. And I start over. Any regrets?" I thought about that question seriously. Did I regret destroying my marriage? Did I regret exposing Derek's crimes? Did I regret the pain this would cause Sarah and the innocent baby she was carrying? "No," I said finally. "No regrets. They made their choices. Now they get to live with the consequences." We drank until closing time, and for the first time in years, I felt free. Tomorrow, Derek Morrison and my wife would wake up to a world where everyone knew exactly what they were, and I would wake up to a world where I didn't have to pretend anymore. The war was almost over, and I was going to win. The arrests came on a Thursday morning. I was at my shop, working on a transmission rebuild, when Tom called with the news. "Turn on Channel 7. Derek's being led away in handcuffs." I wiped my hands on a rag and turned on the small TV in my office. There was Derek Morrison, looking pale and shaken, being escorted from his house by 2 state investigators. The news anchor was explaining the charges: fraud, tax evasion, racketeering, conspiracy. "Morrison Quality Homes has been under investigation for several months," the reporter said. "Sources close to the investigation say Morrison may have defrauded clients out of millions of dollars over the past 5 years. I watched Derek being put into the back of an unmarked car, and I felt a deep satisfaction. The man who'd threatened to sue me, who'd stolen my wife, who'd built his success on lies and theft, was finally facing justice. My phone rang. It was Sarah. "Frank, are you watching the news?" "Yeah. How are you holding up?" "I'm okay. Actually, I'm better than okay. The FBI agents were very nice. They explained that, as Derek's wife, I might be entitled to compensation from the victims' fund they're setting up." "That's good news." "There's more. Derek's lawyer called. He wants to make a deal. Derek will plead guilty to reduce charges in exchange for cooperating with the investigation, but he needs me to sign off on the asset forfeiture." "Are you going to do it?" "Hell no. I want him to face the full consequences of what he's done. Besides, the longer he's in prison, the less chance he has of getting custody of the baby." Sarah had turned into a warrior overnight. The betrayal had hurt her, but it had also made her stronger. "What about Erin?" she asked. "What about her? Have you talked to her since the news broke?" "No, but I'm sure she's having an interesting day." That was an understatement. By noon, the local newspaper had picked up the story, and by evening, it was all over social media. Derek Morrison, prominent local businessman, arrested for fraud. His construction company shut down, his assets frozen, his pregnant wife filing for divorce, and buried in the coverage was a smaller story about Erin Doyle, bank employee and sister of Derek's wife, who'd been terminated for conduct incompatible with the bank's professional standards. Erin called me that night, crying hysterically. "Frank, please, you have to help me. I lost my job. The reporters are calling me. Everyone knows about the affair." I can't help you, Erin. This is what you chose when you decided to cheat. I made a mistake. One mistake. You can't destroy my entire life over one mistake. One mistake? You had an affair for months, Erin. You lied to me every day. You sent me to apologize to the man you were sleeping with. That's not one mistake. That's a pattern of betrayal. But Frank, I love you. I want to come home. There is no home anymore. I changed the locks. Your things are in storage. You can't do this to me. I already did it. It's over, Erin. She hung up, and I felt nothing. No sadness, no regret, no lingering affection. She'd killed whatever love I'd felt for her, and now she was facing the consequences. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Thanks to the adultery clause in our prenup, Erin got nothing. No alimony, no share of the house or business, no claim on our savings. She tried to contest it, but the evidence of her affair was overwhelming. Derek was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. His business was dissolved, his assets seized, his reputation destroyed. The house in Millbrook Estates was sold to pay restitution to his victims. Sarah gave birth to a healthy baby girl and moved back to her hometown to be closer to her parents. She got a substantial settlement from the victims' fund and used it to start a new life. We stayed in touch. She was still family, after all. Erin left town after the divorce was final. I heard through mutual friends that she'd moved to California, trying to start over where nobody knew her story. I wished her luck with that. The internet has a long memory. 6 months after Derek's arrest, I was back at Murphy's Tavern with Tom and Mike, celebrating the completion of my biggest repair job ever, rebuilding the engine in a 1967 Mustang. "So what's next for Frank Doyle?" Tom asked. I thought about that. My business was thriving. The publicity from the scandal had actually brought me new customers who respected the way I'd handled the situation. I'd bought a new house, smaller than the one I'd shared with Erin, but more comfortable. I was dating again, taking my time, being careful. "I'm thinking about expanding the shop," I said. "Maybe hiring another mechanic, taking on more restoration work." "Sounds good," Mike said. "You've earned it." We drank to the future, and I thought about how much my life had changed. A year ago, I'd been married to a woman who was cheating on me, intimidated by a man who was stealing from his clients, isolated from my oldest friends. Now I was free. Free from lies, free from betrayal, free from people who saw me as less than I was. Derek Morrison and Erin had thought they were better than me, thought they could use me and discard me without consequences. They'd learned otherwise. I raised my beer and made a silent toast to the lesson I'd taught them. Never underestimate a man who has nothing left to lose. Derek was in federal prison, serving 8 years for fraud and tax evasion. His construction company was gone, his reputation destroyed, his marriage over. He'd lost everything: his freedom, his money, his family, his future. Erin was working as a waitress in Los Angeles, using her maiden name, trying to rebuild a life from the ashes of her old one. She'd lost her career, her marriage, her family, her hometown. The affair that had seemed so exciting and romantic had cost her everything she'd worked for. Sarah was raising her daughter alone, but thriving. She'd used the settlement money to go back to school, studying to become a paralegal. She'd found strength she never knew she had and was building a better life for herself and her child. And me? I was exactly where I belonged, in my shop, working with my hands, surrounded by friends who'd stood by me when it mattered. I'd learned that success isn't measured by the size of your house or the price of your car. It's measured by your integrity, your loyalty, and your willingness to fight for what's right. Derek and Erin had forgotten that lesson. They'd chosen greed and lust over honor and commitment. They'd betrayed everyone who trusted them, and they'd paid the price. I finished my beer and looked around the bar at the people I'd grown up with. Honest, hard-working people who understood the value of loyalty and friendship. This was my world, and I was proud to be part of it. Derek Morrison had thought he was better than us. He'd thought his money and his connections made him untouchable. He'd thought he could steal from his clients, cheat on his pregnant wife, and threaten anyone who stood in his way. He'd been wrong about all of it. I walked out of Murphy's Tavern that night knowing that justice had been served. Derek was in prison where he belonged. Erin was facing the consequences of her betrayal. Sarah was free to build a new life, and I was free to be myself again. The war was over, and I had won.